Everyone, let's get a drum roll and a huge round of applause for Chi, our commissioner from MLH.
All right, who's had a great time? Yeah! All right, give yourselves a round of applause for your hard work and energy and engagement this weekend. Now, I want you now to turn to one person you have not met before and introduce your name and your hackathon. All right, now that you've had a chance to meet each other, let me introduce myself. Hey, I'm Chi. I'm really driven by your energy of bringing hacking to each of your communities. I've been proud to be your commissioner this past year. As commissioner, my role is to make sure we have the best set of member events as part of our league and to come up with resources and tools to make you all make them successful. And just like you, I too was once a hackathon organizer, organizing over 10 startup weekends to introduce professionals to the world of startups and new ideas. I too can relate to all of the long planning hours because at the end of the day, I wanted to introduce this new concept of hackathons to a world that was just getting disrupted by tech. Last year, I learned about an organization called Major League Hacking, spearheading a movement among the next generation of hackers. It was a movement that was getting hundreds and thousands of students out of the classroom each weekend. Students no longer had to wait until graduation to build out real-world applications. They could now do this over just a course of a weekend, and they were doing it at each of your hackathons. So let me tell you what you all have achieved. Last year, you put on over 180 hackathons as part of the League of member events. Many of those took places in cities that never had a hackathon before. Across all of these events, over 65,000 hackers participated. And of those, over 11,000 projects and new ideas were born. And it's not just the quantity, it is the quality. You all lived out MLH's standard of excellence in all of your events. Here's some of the things I got to see. Everything from a variety of fun activities like costume contests, to yoga, to scavenger hunts, all to give hackers a break from hacking, to dedicated times with some cute pets like iguanas, corgis, and Pokemon, to exposure with some of the most well-known political figures, like the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the Pope. You all can say hackathons became a bit more mainstream, and you all successfully put hacking on people's radar in a very positive way. More well-known people outside of tech are now publicly recognizing the importance of hacking and have given you all the support you need to continue hosting them. So I have no doubt that this season is going to be better than ever, and you all will take it up a notch even more. So give yourselves a round of applause. Now, as we reflect back on this entire weekend, I want us to ask ourselves again, why did we come here? It's important to remember that it's not just about the one hackathon that you put on and that you focus on for the year. It's much bigger than that. Every hackathon you attend, every hackathon you organize is shaping the hacker movement in a very unique way. And each of you are making your own unique contribution to this huge open source project we call hackathons. We know that the hacker movement is exploding, and hackathons are here to stay. And here at MLH, we want to help you continue evolving this project by giving you a framework to help make your hackathons more successful. It's one of the most critical values we here at MLH practice, and we use it for everything we do. It's called learn, build, share. Learn the basics. Learn to put on a hackathon really well, no matter how many times you've put one on. Build the hacker experience. Build on that basic knowledge to perfect that hacker experience. Share your learnings. When you become experienced, share your knowledge with the community so that you can empower other leaders and ultimately drive the movement to the next level. So let's start with the basics. Now, take a few seconds to think about the last time you attended a hackathon. What basic things did you need at that hackathon? I want you to shout some of those things out. Food, yeah. Wi-Fi. Did I hear venue? Yeah, all right. You're saying the same exact things our hackers said. On our post-event survey we send to hackers after every hackathon, they rated those top 3 things as the most important things to have at a hackathon. We realized that MLH, we weren't supporting every event to master these basics. And as a result, we've seen some of these events not get this right. It's kind of like when a hacker comes to cup stacking for the first time. Let me explain. When you get to this mini event, you have exactly 5 minutes to meet your teammate, build the highest possible structure, and beat the other team. You rush, and you don't focus much on creating a base. Similar with hackathon planning, we've seen organizers rush to figure out the basics, like food, Wi-Fi, and venue, so that they can move on to building up some of the rest of the hackathon. And so you just focus on building vertically up fast. We've talked to a huge number of events who focus first on all the fun things like the puppies, the swag, the buses. We know your hackers love this stuff, we get it. But if you do this first, your hackathon tower may actually become too top-heavy, and your base basically starts to wobble. And before you know it, your hackathon planning structure has come tumbling down. When you neglect to set up a strong base, you end up with an event where there's too much food because not enough hackers show up, or really terrible Wi-Fi because it can't handle 500 hackers who need to be connected to at least 3 different devices. That fun stuff, like dogs and yoga, are really great to figure out when you do have the time and resources. But events, new and old, can benefit from going back to the basics. The most basic of all is your team. Every year, especially with established events, you literally have to rebuild your entire team of at least 60+ students. Students graduate, that's what happens. And so your new team tries to quickly establish a baseline knowledge before your next iteration. What your roles are, how much money you're gonna raise, what venue you're gonna pick, what type of food. So if you haven't mastered the fundamentals before you start organizing the newest iteration, it could be detrimental for your hackathon. We've seen a lot of these bigger historical events need to pause their hackathon or degrade in quality simply because there was a lack of focus on these basics. So we at MLH decided to prevent this from happening by sharing some of these resources to get you up to speed on how to master the basics. Our most important resource is our league team. You already know me, but meet the rest of the community managers, Rob and Jamie. When you all apply to become a member event, you get guidance from one of us throughout the planning process. Rob has been supporting some of your events since the spring and comes to us with a background from development, marketing, and event planning. He grew up loving to figure out how things work. The constant learning, experimentation, and ability to constantly help each other, including yourselves, really is what drew him to the hackathon space. Jamie is a brand new hackathon community manager. She comes to us from a former hackathon organizer for HackRU. She joined MLH 2 months ago because she saw how influential this community was in her own tech career and wanted to provide guidance as a way to give back. Jamie, Rob, and I together are really empowered to help empower you all to put on some really great hackathons this season. However, neither Rob, Jamie, or I want to be a bottleneck of information, nor can we really become bots right now. And by the way, Clara is a bot. So, the second resource we just recently created is called an MLH peer group. Apologies, as the link we provided yesterday was incorrect. Here is the correct one. Before this platform was formalized, organizers had been sharing this knowledge with each other and on their own. However, if you were a new organizer to this community, and who's a new organizer? It's a lot of you. You really didn't know who to go to except for to MLH. We created peer groups as a way to link all of you together to share best practices on basic hackathon planning topics like budgets, sponsorships, and outreach. Now, how many of you participated in one this weekend? Raise your hands. Awesome. Cool. We have one more session, I believe, that's happening after this, so I hope to see some of you there. And you can check out the link for all the above sessions coming up. We'll be having basically these Alphas hours every Thursday and Friday, and we hope that you all attend and join us. Now, a lot of you have asked, what are other ways that we can help events that we can't support as member events, or that have time to join a peer group? Now, let me remind y'all of our ever-popular online organizer guide. Who all has referenced this at some point? Great, I'm glad. So our organizer guide is an open source playbook with lessons and best practices we've learned around hackathon planning within the past 4 years. It has budget templates, it has sponsorship packets, and even tips on how to deal with your administrators, and much more. Our last resource to help you master the basics is simply providing them to you. We know cost saving is helpful to any hackathon, and we want to make the organizing process easier for you by giving you some of these good vendor choices to make some tough decisions. We've partnered with a lot more new preferred vendors to help you around with that. As a member event, you'll be getting priority access to some of these discounts around food, t-shirts, and stickers. And just so that your hackers don't tire out, we'll continue to bring some great caffeinated snacks to each of your events. So once you have the foundation in place, you can focus on the actual hackathon experience, right? All right, I want a show of hands. Who here has a person on their team in charge of hacker experience? Awesome. And it's okay if you haven't thought about hackathon experience before. That's why we're learning about it this weekend. You've already gotten hackers to come when you provide the basics. The hacker experience is what gets them to stay. Now, remember, the goal of every hackathon is to get as many hackers to show up, to make something awesome, and to share it with the rest of the world. So your role as organizers is to do everything in your power to make sure that happens. You may organize yoga sessions, or therapy dogs, or workshops, but the stuff you do to ensure hackers participate is part of the hacker experience, but it isn't all. And as Corbin mentioned earlier, hacker experience includes all the immense forethought and outreach that takes place even before the event happens. Let me tell you a story. Meet Freshta. Freshta went to George Mason University studying information technology. During her senior year, her advisor asked her if she's ever attended a hackathon. She had not. She thought hackathons were only for advanced programmers. And even though Freshta had a CS background, she felt her skill level in programming wasn't good enough to compete. Another thing holding her back was that she was worried that nobody would look like her or share her background. So she debates on whether she should register to attend. She, along with many others, have this misconception. Will people look like me? Will there be food that I will be able to eat? Do I know enough? Will these people be nice? It's questions like this that can prevent people like Freshta from showing up the day of. So how do we prevent this fear from holding people back? And that is where we start to bring in the concept of a hackathon funnel. So let's imagine you're putting on a 500-person hackathon. So you focus on just getting the right amount of people signed up, Freshta included. At the beginning of every hacker's journey, the first step is deciding whether or not they want to attend. This is a problem we've seen across a majority of our member events this past season. In total, we actually only found that 30% of our member events had the right number of hackers show up, which actually means they missed getting the right number of people signed up for their event to begin with. But you may be thinking you've probably reached out to everybody that you can, every CS department that's out there. But that's not the only source. There's actually people who haven't learned about your event yet. You just have to go out and find them. You already know that diversity is important. We've talked about it this entire weekend. And diversity is important because it helps you come up with solutions to a variety of challenges all around the world. In fact, you all are breaking new ground by having 50% more female attendees at your hackathons than the average CS department combined. So when it does come to gender, hackathons are winning. And it's the same when we look at ethnicity. The breakdown in ethnicity for computer science, computer engineering, and information systems and hackers are generally more diverse than other school departments. Your role now, though, is to be a student ambassador of hackathons and to promote to those people outside of just these majors. Some of you are already doing that. Hack NYU did a great job of recruiting participants from the business school, the dentistry school, the performing arts school, and much more by simply marketing their hackathon as a makeathon. And you've already heard Tree Hacks and Hack the North on how to be intentional about diversity. It's going to take hard work, and you're going to have to do it over and over again. And don't think that you can hack the process by spending money on Facebook ads. There is this grassroots effort that you really do physically have to do to show up in the classrooms and explain what a hackathon is and why people should come. So go to your friends, the classrooms. Those will be the most effective outreach. And so that's how we got Fareshta to show up at Pearl Hacks. Yay. So great. So you've done the outreach, and you've looked for more diverse audiences. You've successfully got 500 registrations. But on the day of, you realize, oh crap. You run the total check-in numbers, and you realize only 250 people actually checked in. You didn't realize there would be a 50% drop-off rate. So now, you only have 250 hackers to influence, and it's your goal to make sure that these 250 stay. So you do your best to welcome these hackers, especially the beginners like Fareshta. Fareshta decided to attend Pearl Hacks because the event simply mentioned beginners welcomed. It was a pretty simple promotional tactic Pearl Hacks used. As Fareshta got there, she felt like she had come to a safe, inclusive environment to explore her curiosity. There are many events like Pearl Hacks that are already setting up a safe space for new hackers. And last year alone, the League had at least 10 member events that embraced diversity. And to top that off, we had 3 all-women, non-binary hackathons take place on the same exact weekend. Having diverse weekend events like this can even help affect the likelihood of hackers attending even more hackathons. In fact, hackers are 2 times more likely to recommend a diverse event because they know the experience is going to be different. So your work doesn't just end there. Now, you've got to focus on getting Fareshta to share what she builds over the course of the weekend. And here's where MLH comes in. We know the beginning of a hackathon is the most intimidating part. Hackers are most likely to leave right at the beginning if they don't feel like they're going to have a productive weekend, because they don't know what they want to work on or what team to be on. In fact, even I, as an organizer, had this fear while attending one as a hacker for the first time. I tried to talk myself out of it and basically say, hey, if I don't find a team, I'll just end up hanging out with the organizers for that weekend. I too needed some sort of encouragement. So who got to meet one of our coaches this weekend? Awesome. We love them. They're Coach Love. So we provide MLH reps to all of our member events to be an extension of your organizing team and to ultimately empower hackers. And one of those ways is to run a team formation exercise. A team formation exercise was crucial for me to get excited for the rest of the weekend. Now, we know another one of these ways is to make beginners feel welcome is to have beginner-friendly content. And we all know y'all don't have time to source or create these workshops. So this past year, we've dedicated a lot of time towards building up this program that is perfect for beginners. It's called Localhost, and we've talked about it every day. And Jamie will be going over that in the next talk. But even with all that support and words of encouragement, we as organizers still have a challenge of getting all hackers to celebrate what they've learned over the course of the weekend by demoing. Yes, so you have 250 people at your event, but only 25% of them still don't really end up demoing at the end of the hackathon. And this is the number that we need to focus on improving. Remember, most hackers are attending their hackathon for the first time. 64% to be exact. That's almost 7 out of 10. And it's scary to all of a sudden be thrown in a room with a bunch of other hackers and then to be expected to demo something that you don't even really know will work, and to a potential employer. That sounds like a hacker's worst nightmare. So we at MLH want to ease this fear by bringing a lot of resources to incentivize your hackers to stay and to demo, and I'm really excited about these announcements. First off, we want to make sure hackers have access to the latest and greatest technology, which is why this year we're bringing an even bigger assortment of hardware to every event, totaling about $15,000 per pallet. DigiKey, as we mentioned before, is our presenting partner of the Hardware Lab. And this season, we're quadrupling the Hardware Lab with things like the DigiKey component kits, Fitbit devices, more Oculus Rifts, more Samsung Gear VRs, and more Dell laptops to power those VR sets. That's a lot. Now, remember, this is Fareshta's first time at a hackathon, and she's decided to face her programming weakness head on. But it's starting to get late into the night. She's encountered a bug and has no clue how to fix it or where to go. Now, some hackathons like Pearl Hacks are able to create a process for quickly connecting their mentors with Fareshta to work with. But what if you don't have the resources to build a system that connects these hackers? Well, that's okay, because we are bringing you that system. We've designed a system called the MLH Mentor Hotline in partnership with Twilio. We did this to help events that don't have the resources to build something similar. Hackers can now log on to the system to find a mentor in the wild, as Swift mentioned. This will be available at every member event in the next few weeks. Now, we want to recognize all the hard work your hackers are able to pull over this weekend, and we want to make sure they're incentivized to do so. So this year, we're bringing a lot more category prizes to each of your events. So here goes. We're going to be bringing Best Social Good Hack by Fidelity Labs, Best SnapKit Weekly Challenge, Best Use of Agolia, Best Clarify, Best Use of Cisco, Best Authorized.net, Best Use of Google Cloud, in addition to the ones that we had already, which is Best Use of Domain.com and Best IoT Hack using a Qualcomm device. So between your hard work and all the things that MLH are providing, you all are well on your way to building a great hacker experience. Now, I want to sneak in a last message to tie this all together, and using your strongest asset, which is yourselves. Make time to meet a hacker at your hackathon. It will make a huge difference. If a hacker doesn't want a demo because they don't feel like part of this community, they might not stay for the demo. Don't forget, you were once in their shoes before. That one conversation that you pause among all of the organizer chaos to have with a hacker could set them on a journey that is life-changing. And if you've done all of this, Fareshta will demo. So don't forget that why you all chose to be at Hackcon this weekend. To put on a great hackathon, but also to be part of a community that matters. We've talked about how you can do this by first learning the basics, and we spent quite a chunk of time talking about the hacker experience and how to build it up. Sharing is the last framework I want to talk about. Remember, you're not just an organizer, you're now a leader in this community. And the culture of sharing is something you should embrace as a leader. These learnings help us all become collectively better to empower the movement to the next level. And here's a few ways that you can share as well. Now, when you commit to organizing a hackathon, you commit to putting on your next hackathon as well. So train the next semester's team today. You can pair a seasoned organizers with a newcomer. You can nominate folks. Many historical events you know and love still exist today because they set up a process to train organizers and share their knowledge. The second most important thing you can do is to clearly document your knowledge and share that. There are many ways to do this. We have our open source organizer's guide. The purpose of documenting is so that other organizers don't have to reinvent the wheel. Third, your thought leadership on this topic is important. Knowledge is valuable when it is shared, and we want to learn how to adapt to change. So we want to have you all apply to speak at Hackcon next year, or share your learnings at one of our virtual peer groups. Zach from CalHacks and Nathan from Hack Texas are great examples of folks in this community that have already joined these calls simply to share their wisdom. Last, the best way to share your wisdom and set other organizers up for success is to simply apply to join our team. At MLH, and especially my team, our responsibility is to work with at least 200 organizers each year to help them through the planning process and to put on a good event. We also have other job opportunities to impact hackers, and I'd love to see you all apply to be part of our team in one way or another. So talk to us after. All right, it's been a long weekend. I want to thank you all for waking up to attend the last few talks today. The 3 things I talked about today are frameworks that I hope you all take back to your own team. It's important to learn the basics, and we have many resources like the organizer guide, our peer group, our team to help you with that. After you accomplish the basics, don't forget to continually find ways to build up the hacker culture. We at MLH have tons of prizes, hardware, mentors, but we need you all to be at the forefront of making sure hackers of all backgrounds feel welcomed and comfortable coming to your event. And lastly, we all have a bigger obligation to share this knowledge and that we accumulate in the hacker community so that we can power this movement to the next level. Hackcon is just one of these platforms. Joining our team as a community manager or a coach is another. Sharing will make you better leaders and representatives of what hacking should be about. Again, I want to remind folks that here at Major League Hacking, our mission is to empower hackers. We're excited to be with you on this journey, and let the 2019 season begin.
Awesome, thank you, Chi. We have time for a couple of questions. Raise your hands up high. You can ask Chi anything.
And I'm going to have my team join me as well. Yeah.
What do you see as the biggest challenges for the 2019 season?
The biggest challenge, I personally think, is being able to support the growing number of events that are out there. We get so many different people who are interested, like all over the world, and we just simply do not have the resources. It's literally us 3, so you all have probably hopped on calls with us at some point. We're trying to handle probably hundreds of emails every day, and just trying to figure out how to scale and connect everybody to each other in a timely manner.
Yeah, right up front there.
Hi, I'd like to hear more about what MLH does to support the specific needs of high school hackathons, which might be a little bit shorter than we're used to, especially where hardware is concerned.
I think I'm going to give Jamie this one because you've been working with a lot of high school hackathons. No? All right, I'll take this.
I mean, one of the major differences between university hackathons and high school hackathons is, the sponsors that they can work with, the reason they do work with those sponsors, right? For example, high schoolers have to really lean on, the community getting invested in their, in putting on a local hackathon, so getting a lot of buy-in from the local region and community because the needs of the companies they're working with, they're not necessarily trying to hire candidates for full-time roles right out of college. And so, a lot of high school students, we support them through, helping give them advice around, strategies they can use to sell sponsorships to those type of local companies, local banks, and how to connect with them, and just providing them, resources in terms of support and advice. And your question was about hardware specifically. So yeah, member events still receive the, all the amazing hardware that was mentioned. So we help them, get connected with all those resources.
One thing I would add to that, actually, is for a lot of the high school events that we've worked with in the past, having MLH able to talk to their school administrators and reassure them that this event is not going to be like chaos and like Lord of the Flies is one of the biggest value points, because high school administrators are not used to having their students run the show, and having that reassurance is a huge part of our relationship with them.
Yeah, one thing that I could add to that is if you all have hardware at your events, that I think that should be super helpful to be able to help any other hackathon out, especially these high school students, because they don't have access to all this technology. And it's a great way to just kind of give back and be connected and mentor these people.
I'd say on the final point, like in the same way that learning from our team, the high school students that we work with are really driven and really eager, and having that extra pair of eyes to say, oh, before you show this to your history teacher, like let's go through it, let's talk through the packet. So really, when we do work with high school students, we try to work with them really closely and give them as much advice as possible on a lot of the basics that were mentioned here, but even more so because this is the first time that they've had to do anything like it, like many of you. But with high school students, it's very high touch as well.
So you guys send out a lot of surveys. I wonder what the response rate is for all the surveys that you guys send out.
The last I checked, I think in total we had like 9,000 responses, if not 10,000 responses. So I don't know what the percentage of the response rate is, but that's the number.
Yeah, for post-event surveys, it's about, I want to say 30%, which is really, really good. For the end of season survey, that super, super long one, who here is taking that survey? You guys, the real heroes.
You rock.
It's about 10%. So still really good, still definitely statistically significant, but it varies a lot. Any other questions here?
I see in the front.
Whoops, sorry.
Hi, I have a question for Chi. So the first step you said to organizing a great event is building your base. So let's say that an event already has a really strong base, but wants to sort of grow the event and sort of like expand. How do we move past sort of like the comfort of saying, well, we do this really well, so why do we need to change?
Yeah. So if you're expanding, I'm assuming that you're expanding to have like even more hackers at your event, right? So your base basically continues to grow. And so, yeah, you've got the base down for a 200 event. Now you've got to get the base down for like a 500-person event, which is quite different. And so we've seen events where the quantities, don't adjust accordingly, or they didn't think about like the many more types of people that will be there, and so not having like the right food offerings, or even the Wi-Fi, where the Wi-Fi was originally set, like this place was only set for probably 50 people, I don't know. So we had to like figure out like Wi-Fi for this venue to host like 500 people. So there's like many things like that, and that's what I'm talking about, which is like no matter how many times you've done this and how big you get, like you have to always go back to the core basics first.
Cool. One more question. Going once. Going twice. Okay, awesome. Give them a huge round of applause. They'll all be around later. Most of you here have probably had a phone call with one of them at some point. They work their asses off to make sure your events are successful and have everything you need. So give them another big round of applause for all the support.